It's amazing to have a working laptop. Strike. Seattle concrete workers. What's happening? November 19th, 2021, 34 concrete workers in the Teamsters Local 174 in Seattle went on strike, but by December 3rd, the strike had grown to over 300 workers under contract at 6 different construction companies. This is another strike I got to way too late. It ended April 11th, 2022, without a labor contract. The workers have returned to work, but the Teamsters Local 174 will continue negotiating for a new and fair labor contract. But I had 57 pages of notes, and I refused to let it go to waste. What are their goals? The workers want higher wages and better healthcare benefits for retired workers. Look, you know the deal already. I've talked about it in nearly every single strike video. The cost of living is rising everywhere in America, while wages are not. Wages have been stagnant since the 1970s. The workers want a 45-cent wage increase. The latest offer from the construction companies is a 30-cent wage increase over a 3-year period. So 10 cents a year. Not a lot. Workers are struggling to make ends meet right now. They need money right now. The concrete workers also want better healthcare benefits. Concrete work and construction work in general takes a massive toll on workers' mental health and an intense physical toll, as well as lung problems caused by concrete dust inhalation and health problems caused by noise pollution. Construction workers suffer from a mental health epidemic. America itself is suffering from a mental health epidemic. And it's not because teens love the TikTok. It's a whole other video, but long story short, a pandemic, environmental destruction, rising cost of living, enormous debts, a nation at war, low wages, minority stress caused by prejudice, the normalization of poverty, and so much more is causing a mental health epidemic. Going outside, doing yoga, and taking a walk will do nothing to address homelessness. If that's all you have to add to this discussion, please.
Bavaka, shut the fuck up!
But, focusing on construction workers. According to a study by the Harvard School of Public Health, construction workers are more likely to experience depression, panic disorders, anxiety, and struggle with suicide due to work-related injuries causing financial strain. Construction workers are also in the working class and have to deal with the mental health stigma against seeking treatment. Though it might be too simplistic of you to just say they aren't seeking treatment. In a lot of cases, say where your job isn't giving you adequate healthcare benefits.
Oh, also our policy for sick days is don't get sick and we won't have a problem. Understood.
Treatment might just simply not be an option because therapy is fucking expensive.
I charge $250 an hour now.
But whatever the reason, construction workers are more likely to commit suicide. This study demonstrated the high prevalence of substantial mental distress in the U.S. construction worker population and how this distress is strongly related to pain and injuries. 40% of construction workers over 50 have chronic back pain, which limits their ability to work, and 45% of injured workers are diagnosed with depression and/or anxiety. Construction workers have double the suicide rate of the general population. This is definitely tied to our ableist society only valuing people for their ability to work, so people find their identity in work, and when that's taken away, they lose their identity. And also tied to the patriarchal society only valuing men and AMABs who are able to work themselves to death in order to provide for their families. A la, work is dignity.
And then he'd say, Joey, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. And mean it. I've never forgotten those lessons. That's why my economic plan is all about jobs, dignity, respect, and community.
So, people who cannot work just don't deserve dignity. Is it any wonder construction workers struggle with their mental health? The poor mental health is directly related to the physical toll construction work takes on the body. Construction workers have a high rate of musculoskeletal pain. 75% of workers experienced musculoskeletal pain. 42% reported one or more work injuries in the preceding month. The construction industry has some of the highest rates of workplace fatalities. 20.7% of workplace deaths in America are in the construction industry. That's 1/5 of all deaths. That's a lot. 37.9% of construction work fatalities are due to falls, slips, and trips, which all have different legal definitions for some god-awful reason. 32% of non-fatal construction work industries were falls, slips, and trips. The average amount of time a worker spends out of work due to an injury is 28 days. Now that's a lot of time and a lot of missed paychecks. Construction workers are also exposed to large levels of noise pollution. Noise pollution is the spread of unwanted sounds into the environment, which can have a dangerous effect on people's health. Our stupid brains are constantly on the lookout for danger, and it registers frequent and loud noise as a threat. When a construction worker is in a consistently loud environment, even with ear protection, the body is constantly in a fight or flight mode, and that has effects. It causes them to constantly be on edge, increased rates of anxiety, difficulty falling asleep, inability to stay asleep, disruption of rapid eye movement, sleep impacting a worker's mood and ability to concentrate, elevated blood pressure, increased rates of cardiovascular disease, and higher rates of preeclampsia for pregnant people. And of course, hearing impairment like loss of hearing, distorted hearing, and tinnitus. Long story short, loud noise bad. And for concrete workers specifically, cement dust can lead to respiratory problems. The chemicals in the cement, such as lime and silica, can cause coughs, asthma, and lung infections, as well as the development of allergies, and concrete dust is connected to higher rates of hypertension and diabetes. Workers who are exposed to cement dust suffer from more bouts of shortness of breath than construction workers who did not work with cement dust. And oh yeah, I don't know if you forgot, but we are in the middle of a pandemic. Okay, people are dying, literally dying, and the people who aren't dying are dealing with the effects of long COVID and the financial implications of taking time off work and paying medical bills. This is not how a healthy society treats its people. It's fucked up. If the work your workers are doing is destroying their bodies, it's your duty to take care of them after the job that you hired them for makes them unemployable. In a civilized society, we would take care of our citizens after they can't work, but instead we discard them and remove all responsibility from the companies, as if working class people just randomly have their bodies broken down. There's a reason it's called working yourself into an early grave. The strike has many ramifications for the workers, their families, other blue-collar construction workers, and Seattle citizens. Buildings are built in a specific order. Laying down the concrete foundation, what the concrete workers do, has to happen early on, before the plumbing can be installed, before the electricians can wire the house, before the masons can lay down the brickwork, before the roofers can go to town, before the building can be painted. The concrete foundation has to be laid down. So a concrete workers' strike effectively puts a halt to all construction work and causes several construction workers further down the construction process to lose their jobs. Job losses are in the thousands. I'm bringing this up not to bash the concrete workers who want a 45-cent wage increase and health care after they retire, but rather the construction companies who are holding everything up because of their greed. Pay your workers a decent wage and give them health care. Like it's just basic human decency. Don't blame the strikers, blame the companies who have rejected 7 different offers on a $30 million deal with the city of Seattle. Due to the strike, several construction projects in the Seattle area have been put on hold. These projects are the Waterfront Seattle program, Madison Rapid Ride G-Line, the Ship Canal Water Quality Project, the West Seattle Bridge, and a new psychiatric teaching hospital on the University of Washington Medical Center's Northwest campus. I assume it will get an equally catchy name. All these projects are vital to the city of Seattle, and the strike caused a 6-month delay. One project is the Madison Rapid Ride G-Line, a bus line that is intended to deal with Seattle's lackluster public transit and congested roads. What, Big Bertha didn't magically solve traffic? Shocked, I tell you. Shocked. Another delayed project is the Ship Canal Water Quality Project. The city of Seattle has a combined sewer system. That means that the sewer system and the runoff system for rainwater share pipes. So whenever there are heavy rains in Seattle, the sewer system overflows and the sewer water gets dumped into the Ship Canal, harming the quality of water and local wildlife. The Ship Canal Water Quality Project will prevent 75 million of gray water and sewer water from dumping into the Seattle waterways. Good stuff. That's been put on hold. The West Seattle Bridge is a crumbling bridge on a major thruway that needs to be reinforced. It was earmarked for repairs several years ago. The psychiatric hospital would be a 150-bed hospital, and as a teaching hospital, it would educate new mental health care workers. And given the mental health crisis in America and our current healthcare worker shortage, as discussed in my video on the Massachusetts nurses' strike, that's important. 1 in 4 Americans have a mental illness, and we have nowhere near enough services. Right now, the biggest provider of mental health care is the prison system. It's just easier to lock up mentally ill people. Many people are using all these ramifications as a way to demonize the strikers, but let's really examine these reasons and see if everything is really the strikers' fault. America hasn't taken care of its water infrastructure in decades. The last large expenditure of water infrastructure happened in the 1910s, and many portions of the U.S. have pipes from the 1800s. 2 million Americans are without clean water. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave America's water infrastructure a D- rating. The onus for routine maintenance is placed on cities and towns, and they do not have the funds to replace the aging pipes. America's bridges and roads are also crumbling. According to the Infrastructure Report Card, 42% of the 617,000 bridges in the U.S. are more than 50 years old, and more than 46,000 of them are rated as structurally deficient. Infrastructure is funded through taxes, but the scourge of Reaganomics and austerity politics cut taxes for the rich, and there went the funding. Like everything that has gone wrong with things in America, the problem begins with Ronald Reagan. Now, any attempt to raise taxes to repair infrastructure is fought tooth and nail, but this is a problem decades in the making. When the American infrastructure was laid out, we knew we had up to 50 years to replace aging infrastructure, and we did not. In the 1980s, the book America in Ruins warned that spending on infrastructure was dropping while infrastructure was wearing out faster than previously estimated. Pat Choate told Congress that 1 in 5 bridges needed repairs and were not safe for the public, but we didn't listen. A 6-month delay is not to blame. One factor that is increasing the rate of our infrastructure's deterioration is climate change. Increased rainfall, decreased rainfall, colder winters, hotter summers can lead to all sorts of problems like power grids giving up in the middle of winter or the middle of summer, leading to people freezing to death or dying of heat stroke. Concrete bridges expanding and constricting, leading to cracks and collapses, floods swamping houses and overflowing sewer systems, droughts destroying agriculture. Just a lot of problems. But this is another thing we knew about decades in advance. Congress was warned of impending climate change in the 1950s, and this is another thing we just ignored. So no, again, a brief strike did not cause everything to crumble into disarray. We just love ignoring problems until it's too late. The West Seattle Bridge has been delayed for 2 years. How can a strike that only went on for 6 months have caused a 2-year delay? Unless the strikers have time machines. The mental health crisis in America has been a growing problem since forever. And America has been ignoring this problem for even longer. Our current health insurance system is garbage. Most health insurance plans don't include mental health care because it is not medically necessary. That's a whole other video topic, assuming you have health insurance. And there's a shortage of therapists, particularly in country and suburban areas, due to how fucking expensive degrees are. At least we aren't locking up our mentally ill in abusive asylums. Now we're just locking them up in prison. All this to say that a strike delaying a mental health hospital by 6 months is not good, but not the fault of the strikers when America has been ignoring its mental health crisis for decades. Thankfully, the city of Seattle realizes that none of this is the concrete workers' fault and is supporting the workers. In an attempt to end the strike, the city has offered a starting $30 million project labor agreement with more money to follow to any construction company that can form a bargaining agreement with the union. It's a nice change of pace the city's sicking police on strikers and throwing their weight behind the businesses. How do we support the workers? Well, since the strike has ended, not much, but we should keep an ear to the ground in case the strikers go on strike again, which I rather suspect they will. The link to donate to the strike fund is still active, so I will leave those in the description. Cal Portland, Cadman, Lehigh Cement, Stoneway, Northwest Merlino, and Malcolm Drilling have engaged in all manner of political chicanery to destroy the concrete workers' strike. It's depressing to see it succeed. The companies hired non-union workers. They offered higher pay to workers willing to break the strike. Malcolm Drilling set up industrial air compressors to drown out strikers picketing. One of the strikers had this to say about the matter. It was so loud, it was painful. As we looked in the building, we could see all the guys in the windows laughing, smiling, and taking pictures. They thought our pain was hilarious. They are scabbing our work, and then they are hurting us physically and are laughing about it. What are we supposed to do with that? It was really, really insulting. And truck drivers have frequently charged the picket lines, and there were several close calls where strikers were nearly hit by vehicles. The Teamsters Local 174 went to court in order to secure protection for their striking workers. The Superior Court Commissioner Mark Hillman ruled that the companies had to inform their workers, their customers, and the picketers that they had the right to delay vehicles while picketing by posting notices with the picketers' rights outlined. Picketers had the right to delay vehicles for up to a minute without being charged by construction vehicles, which, vehicular assault is already illegal. But if you're a company enabling workers to run over picketers, then you just get a slap on the wrist. But it gets worse, because the same companies were pushing picketers and spraying them with water hoses, and all they had to do to make amends was not to stop doing those things. All that continued, and all they had to do was hang up a sign saying they weren't allowed to do those things. All this to say, I understand why the workers ended the strike. They are being attacked and had no legal recourse to protect themselves, as well as the mounting pressure of other construction workers being laid off and strikers being blamed for it, and plus the months of trying to get by without any income. In the larger context, I'm worried that since these terrible strike-breaking methods worked, other companies are going to utilize them. I mean, they already do. Just look at what happened with the Warrior Met coal miners' strike. But labor has been on a winning streak since 2020, so it is disheartening to have the first loss in a long while. I don't think this will completely ruin all workers' spirits and destroy the labor movement forever. But I do think the companies dealing with strikers will study this example and use the lessons learned. It's surprising to me that the strike failed. I thought Teamsters Local 174 had all the aces up their sleeves. The city of Seattle was behind them with a $30 million deal. They seemingly had all the power as a vital step in the construction process. All construction in the city was grounded to a halt. Important projects like updating the water infrastructure, building a mental health hospital, and reinforcing a crumbling bridge was stopped. Nothing could happen. And yet, the construction companies were able to stretch the strike out for 5 to 6 months as they attacked strikers and wasted time dilly-dallying over minutiae and making statements claiming that the union was refusing to negotiate in the news. All the while, the Teamsters released contract negotiating meeting minutes showing that the union was in fact trying to negotiate, but the companies were refusing to do shit. Like that 10-cent a year raise I mentioned was the very first and only offer. Quite frankly, there's a limit to what workers can do when we're trapped in a society where money is a real and constant consequence of existence. Countries with a large labor movement are places usually with a larger social safety net. America does not have that. In America, when strikes occur, it's a bunch of poor people passing around the same $20. People who are already struggling to survive are being called upon to support other poor people in solidarity. And we should. It's very important that we stick together because the government and companies don't give a shit. We are all we have. But we don't have a lot, and there is a limit. So many companies just stretching out the negotiation process is a very successful strategy, which is garbage. Damn. Normally when I make these videos, I feel energized to see fellow workers fighting for what's theirs, but reality has an uncomfortable habit of crashing in on everyone. So inconsiderate. I don't even know where to end this video. So, here's my outro.
I was stuck in bed, and you were stuck here with me. But now you may go and live your lives. Go, be cute, keep gay, be crime. Bye!
Julie, do the thing.
Don't freak out. It's not real.